northwest Guatemala, preparations are being made for a special flight. 45 million passengers on a mission will be transported to an area near the border between Guatemala and Mexico. The passengers? Fruit flies. Nuclear technology has transformed them into the cure against a huge insect plague. When people hear the words nuclear technology, many seem to have a clear picture what these two words stand for: Chernobyl, Fukushima, nuclear waste. But do we know what role nuclear technology plays in our modern society, in agriculture, medicine, industry, and research? Join us in the exploration of a lesser-known side of this technology in Nuclear Lifeline. Seibersdorf, Austria. Between the fields lies an extensive laboratory complex where the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and the International Atomic Energy Agency work together to improve the living circumstances of millions of people worldwide. And they look for solutions in an unexpected science: nuclear technology.
The nuclear technology is becoming a big part in our life, often without many people knowing about it.
Director Ku Liang leads a team of scientists in their battle against possible consequences of climate change, like spreading viruses, dying crops, pests, and drought. Melting glaciers, rising sea levels, and heavy rainfall are causing floods. Heat waves and droughts may cause the extinction of both plant and animal species. Worldwide, farmers in poor countries, whose livelihood depends on their land and animals, are suffering from these consequences. Could nuclear research be one of the tools to win this fight?
Through this better understanding, we can develop the technology to meet the challenge of climate change.
On the other side of the world, in Guatemala, lies the El Pino Center. This facility was built to fight this little insect. The El Pino Center breeds 1.5 billion fruit flies each week. Almost 80 billion fruit flies per year that will decrease the population of this pest.
So these little fruit flies are small and they look very innocent, but they are responsible for billions worth of damage to crops around the world.
The techniques and the facility used in Guatemala were originally developed in Seibersdorf. The development of this method is led by Belgian scientist Mark Freysen.
We are developing here technologies, nuclear technologies, to help farmers control insect pests.
Because of global warming, insects are more likely to survive in larger areas. When they expand their territory in large numbers, they can be fatal for agricultural land, especially citrus fruits. Fruit flies lay their eggs in fruit, and after hatching, the larvae feed on the pulp. To suppress these insect plagues, huge amounts of harmful pesticides are used worldwide. This has a massive impact on nature and humans.
People around the world are dying because of pesticides, are dying because they don't have good nutrition.
This is bad for the environment, this is bad for the farmer, this is bad for the consumer, and there is a tremendous need for control tactics that are more friendly to the environment. And this is where we come in, because we are working on an environmentally friendly technology which is called the sterile insect technique.
The sterile insect technique is a method where the male pupae are treated with radiation. The radiation penetrates deep into the pupae and reaches the DNA, where it will cause a change in the genetic material. The result of this change is that the male fruit flies become sterile. They are no longer able to generate offspring. After this process is completed and the pupae have emerged, the fruit flies will be released to mate with wild females. Because female fruit flies normally only mate once in their lives, and the sterile males cannot produce offspring, the population will decrease in a natural way. Due to the close collaboration with the facility in Seibersdorf, This technique is applied in Guatemala and on a huge scale, the largest scale in the world.
You cannot imagine, 40 years ago, it was pest, fruit fly pest, all around this country. 3 governments, Mexico, the United States of America, and Guatemala, decided to run the Moscamed program.
The program's objective is to prevent and control these pests in Guatemala and Mexico, not only for the local fruit industry, but also for export to, for example, the US. In the past, Moscamed was criticized for using pesticides to combat pests. Now, they are working with a more eco-friendly sterile insect technique to fight one of the most devastating plagues in the world of fruit farming. And today, everything is being prepared to release 45 million of these little solutions near the border between Mexico and Guatemala. The result of climate change on agriculture is drastic. Droughts are getting more and more severe. Since 1900, more than 11 million people have died, and more than 2 billion people have been affected by drought. But higher temperatures also contribute to an increasing number of crop diseases. Nuclear technology is playing an important role in the strengthening of crops to make them survive in an increasingly challenging environment.
By using nuclear technology, you can tremendously increase the natural diversity within crops.
Belgian scientist Ivan Engelbrecht leads the plant breeding and genetics lab in Seibersdorf.
Actually, what we do in this lab here, we help farmers and also plant breeders all across the world improve their crops.
Because water is becoming increasingly scarce and the environment is changing, farmers need to grow crops that can survive in harsh conditions, such as drought. Nuclear technology provides the solution by accelerating evolution. By irradiating the seeds of a crop, the DNA of the plant is altered, strengthened.
Here we are in these greenhouses. After we have irradiated the plants, what we typically do is we will plant them in trays like this, like you see here. A couple of weeks ago, we had a farmer coming from Namibia. He grows maize in his home country, and he was interested in getting some improved traits for his corn.
Ivan and his team irradiated the corn seeds at different levels to determine the optimum dose for improvement of the crop. Of course, without making them radioactive.
It is just the delivery of a high energy stream that induces variation within the crop.
We might not realize it, but for most products you find in the supermarket, this technique has been used at some stage.
People are not aware, but if you happen to have a pasta dish in Italy, chances are very high that it's actually a product from mutation breeding. Mutation may sound like a dangerous word, but it's a natural process. We all mutate, all living organisms have DNA that evolves over time.
What takes nature sometimes thousands of years, these scientists achieve in only minutes. Their technique speeds up the natural evolutionary process in the plants. But will it be enough to save the livelihood of farmers all over the world? Without people knowing, nuclear technology plays an important part in everyday life. Radiation is used not only in medicine and industry, but also in agriculture and the battle against the consequences of climate change, like the spread of insect pests. Billions of irradiated fruit flies are the main element in this battle. They are bred in the El Pino facility in Guatemala, and they are very hungry.
In fruit fly research, everything starts with the diet. As you know, fruit flies, they thrive in the wild on the fruit. And if you want to produce these insects in large numbers, in the millions, you need to develop a diet that is cheap and reproducible.
A variation of the diet that Mark and his team developed is being produced in Guatemala. Thousands of kilos per week. As the largest mass-rearing facility in the world, they have a lot of hungry mouths to feed. This diet will make sure that as soon as the eggs hatch, the larvae can satisfy their huge appetite. But first, the eggs need to be collected. This happens in special nurseries, where male and female fruit flies mate.
After mating, the females will start laying their eggs through the nets. The eggs will fall into water, and the water with the eggs is collected on a daily basis.
A fruit fly can lay up to 900 eggs in her life. So with the operational scale of the Guatemalan facility, hundreds of millions of eggs are collected each week.
Thereafter, the eggs are being put on the diet. The eggs will develop in about a day, and thereafter the hatched larvae will dig themselves into the diet, and they will mature over a period of 10 days.
After 10 days, the larvae have matured into pupae. The sterile insect technique only requires male fruit flies to be irradiated, and at the pupae stage, the males need to be separated from the females. But if you produce on such a large scale, how can you separate millions of males from millions of females? Well, not by hand.
Therefore, we have developed so-called genetic sexing systems, whereby we can do this process automatically.
Mark and his team have created the fruit fly strain that is used in Guatemala. In this strain, male pupae differ from female pupae by color, and the females are more sensitive to higher temperatures. By putting the pupae in warm water, it is ensured that only the males survive. This batch of males is ready for the next step: irradiation. They are placed in the irradiation machine with thousands of pupae at once. The radiation slightly changes the fruit fly's DNA, but it doesn't kill them or leave them radioactive.
You can compare that with going to a hospital and taking an X-ray. The only difference is that the dose that we give these insects is much higher than what you would receive when you get an X-ray.
With nuclear technology, scientists can work at such a microscopic level that they can adjust the DNA of a tiny fruit fly. Something so small can benefit people on such a large scale. And with our continuously growing population, the problem of climate change is only becoming bigger and bigger, putting an increasing pressure on farmers.
To feed the rapidly growing population, we need good crops. And to have good crops, we need good soils. That's how simple it is.
Geographic leads the research lab that focuses on supporting climate-smart agriculture. The scientists can measure the use efficiency of water, but also of fertilizer. It is estimated that 20 to 24% of all greenhouse gases come from agriculture, forestry, and other land use. The inefficient use of fertilizer is also a contributor, because fertilizers can release nitrous oxide into the air, and most farmers don't know this greenhouse gas can contribute to global warming.
When you do not know the baseline of resource use efficiency, you cannot improve it. You don't know how you have to improve it. How can I know that I need help?
That's where science comes in. Nitrogen from the fertilizer is taken up by the plant, gets lost into the groundwater, or is emitted into the sky as nitrous oxide, a greenhouse gas. To better understand this process, the scientists use fertilizer enriched with nitrogen isotopes. The isotopes are like a track and trace code to follow the nitrogen each step of the way. The scientists do so by taking samples to measure how much isotopes are in the plant. They also measure how much isotopes are emitted by the plant.
The more the plant is taking up the fertilizer, the less we have these environmental problems.
This is how Geographic and his team can provide farmers and governments with a tailor-made advice to optimize the harvest and reduce the greenhouse gas footprint of a country at the same time. Meanwhile, in Guatemala, the pupae of the fruit flies are irradiated. Soon they will emerge and then need to be released as soon as possible.
I think there is one basic principle if you do the sterile insect technique, and that is that if you produce your insects, you bring them as soon as you possibly can into the target area.
From the facility in El Pino, the irradiated pupae are taken to the packing and release center. After the fruit flies emerge from their pupae, they are collected in cooled containers. The low temperature puts the fruit flies in a state of sleep. This prevents them from harming themselves and makes them easier to handle. The flies are loaded into a truck and sent on their way to the flight of their life. Behind the doors of these labs in Cybersdorf, scientists use an unexpected method to fight the consequences of climate change: nuclear technology. Climate change affects our entire planet, but it also influences our daily lives in more ways than we know. For example, rising temperatures can contribute to more insect-friendly habitats, and insects can spread dangerous viruses like Zika.
Viruses are extremely small, but extremely smart and tough.
Giovanni Catali is responsible for the animal production and health laboratory in Cybersdorf. He fights the small but tough enemy of animals and humans: viruses.
A virus is an extremely small living organism, so small that is few proteins and few genes. For example, we as humans, we have millions of genes. A virus, such as the virus of influenza, has only 8 genes.
In order to fight a virus, you need a vaccine made from the virus itself.
A vaccine is a virus, but unable to replicate and to cause disease, but still able, once injected in an animal, to provoke an immune response.
But viruses are smart and they evolve. They change themselves in such a way that antibodies no longer recognize them. For this reason, many vaccines need to be changed, time and time again.
A classical example is the influenza vaccines that we need every year, because the vaccines I got last year was protecting me against the viruses circulating last year.
Giovanni and his team used nuclear technology to treat a virus that's used as a vaccine in such a way that the immune system can always recognize it, even if the virus evolves. This research could save animals all around the world, which is crucial to farmers who depend on their livestock.
Our main focus is to help animals to stay healthy. And by doing this, we are helping farmers, local and national economies as well. And by doing this, we are also helping countries.
Nuclear technology can be found in more places than we realize. It has become part of our everyday life. But what can we expect in the future?
This glass represents the volume of fuel which is required for one person to provide the energy for his entire life.
This sounds impossible, but the development of new nuclear technologies is making giant leaps forward. According to Belgian nuclear specialist Frank de Koning, nuclear technology might not only help to fight the consequences of climate change, but it might even be a possible answer to climate change itself.
Today's scientific knowledge and state-of-the-art technology is such that nuclear technology will and should play a major role in ensuring a sustainable future.
A part of this future is being built right now: ITER. Here, 35 nations are collaborating on a large-scale source of energy that is safe and clean compared to fossil fuels. ITER is based on the same principle as our sun and stars: nuclear fusion. Fusion is a nuclear reaction in which atomic nuclei collide and melt together. This melting creates energy. An immense heat is generated and tremendous amounts of energy are released. But there is no long-lasting nuclear waste and no emission of greenhouse gases. To ensure the ongoing development of new and better nuclear technology, people need to be educated. But where can you train students to work with nuclear technology? In Mol, Belgium, there is a nuclear research center that offers practical experience for students from all over the world.
I study microbiology.
I study biomedical sciences.
I studied bioscience engineering.
I study microbiology.
Well, the students, they are very international. They come from all over the world. They are biologists, they are mechanical engineers, they are agronomists, they are whatever you say, they're all here.
Here, top students are offered the practical experience that a university is not able to offer them.
Nuclear applications will still go on for centuries. So we have to make sure that we find young, motivated people that can really bring important contributions into the field where we work.
Climate change is a global challenge, threatening the future of our children and grandchildren. And it requires a global approach based on sound science rather than on subjective feelings.
45 million sterile fruit flies are now ready to be released. The cooled containers with the flies are loaded onto the plane. It's time. The engines are started and the plane takes off. The plane reaches the drop zone near the border between Mexico and Guatemala. The cooled flies are dropped through the hull of the plane via 2 tubes.
When they get into touch with the warm air, they slowly wake up and then they will be active before they reach the ground.
In the coming days, the flies will spread out over the fields and find a female to mate with, without producing any offspring. So these lands can stay safe from fruit fly plagues. Mission accomplished. Nuclear technology continues to play unexpected roles in our lives. It is all around us in ways we hardly ever think about.